to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. We need the agenda approval. Jeff, do you want to explain the addition to the agenda, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm trying to. I think I got it. The item that I have is related to the tax forfeited land sale that the board approved last month. And this is a parcel adjacent to the Potlatch Board Company up in Fardin Township. And I'll be asking the board to authorize me to send a letter so that the county can obtain that parcel.
Okay, so you just want to put that under your
Yeah,
administrative
we'll
at
just
the
put it
end?
under administrator.
Okay. All right, with that, I need approval for the agenda.
So moved.
Ted moves.
I'll second.
Okay, Steve seconds. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Public input? Who'd like to speak? That's you.
Here?
Yep, and if you just want to state your name and your address, please, before you begin.
Kel Johansson, 38179 US 71, Lake George, Minnesota.
Jason Kalinowski, 45791 Schoolcraft Trail, LaPorte, Minnesota.
Okay. So go ahead, you each have 3 minutes.
Okay, well, I'd like to start out, I believe Mike Sedansky had sent a resolution request for wolf hunting and trapping season and delisting, and a letter to be sent to Amy Klobuchar. We're also requesting that one be also sent to Pete Stauber. And I see that now, from what I hear, that there might be some thing going in as far as something be going forward with Amy Klobuchar and them putting in something to get the delisting of the wolves. But we're requesting that a few of us, get to speak here. I'd just like to let it be known, like, I bought property in 2008 up here. I retired, moved up here in April. Since April, I've seen 15 deer total around our property. The property was bought for hunting. My kids don't even come up here hunting anymore, and there's no deer. There's wolves. My son this last fall, I was gonna start training his dog for waterfowl hunting. I've had wolves in the property. I can't even take the dog outside. I've had deer killed within 30 yards of the house from wolves. There's tracks all over the place. Everybody I've talked to up here has had massive issues with the wolf population. I've talked to grouse hunters on the trails. There's been people that their dogs have been chased down by wolves out in the woods grouse hunting. There's been a lot of people that I know of cattle that have been taken down. So I guess we're just requesting, there's several other people here today too that are out here, that we could somehow, the board move forward with this to request that something be done, because it's gotten out of control.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Cal?
Yeah, I guess, I think something needs to start at the local level in order to get to the federal issue, which is wolf control. In the past 2 years, I've lost 25 head of calves to the wolves. Can't prove it, and so they won't do anything because you don't find nothing. We've seen groups of at least 15 wolves in a pack on our property. We used to have, you could drive around, see hundreds of deer in the evening. Now you might see 3 or 4. I mean, there just aren't any deer, so they're eating our calves. And I had another fellow that ran into that Dale Vogt. Some of you know him. He does work with the county. He couldn't be here today, but he had somebody renting his pasture last year up in Rockwood Township. And when they come and got the cows, there was 14 calves missing. When he searched his property and they couldn't find a hide nor hair of them, well, they clean them up overnight. They eat the whole thing. The ones I've found from 7 o'clock at night till 7 o'clock the next morning, and there's maybe a third of the calf and part of the bones are all that's left. And if you don't find them that day, the next day there's nothing. And can't find ear tags, can't find anything. And so the feds say they can't do anything because there's no evidence unless you find something that's been eaten by the wolves. But we definitely have a problem, and I think it needs to start at the local level and work its way through. We used to, like I said, there used to be a lot of deer around, and there aren't anymore, and now they're eating our cattle. So I think we're hoping that you guys can pass a resolution to try to get something accomplished at the state and federal level.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, can I say one other thing? 'Cause I mean, yeah, it's affecting too. I spoke to the meat shop in Park Rapids here, whatever. I mean, they're seeing a lot less deer coming in. It's affecting a lot of the businesses as well.
Okay.
So, and some of the other people I've spoke to too that have no longer seen deer on their property. One of the good questions is if this something doesn't happen here, do our property taxes for people that bought land for hunting, do they start to lower their property taxes? Because if I went to sell my property now that was set up for deer hunting, if I have photos and a lot of evidence of deer there and my property goes for sale, somebody's gonna buy that. They're gonna get more money if that's what they're buying it for, is hunting property. When they come out and look at it and there's absolutely hardly any sign of deer at all, and it's mostly nothing but wolf sign, nobody's gonna purchase that property. So my value now of my property is far less than what I paid for it initially as hunting property. So a lot of the people I've been speaking to, there's groups that I've talked to, I haven't shot a deer in 3 years. There's other groups I've talked to, there's 17, 19 in a group. They've seen like 1 or 2 deer in the last 3 years in the Park Rapids area, just north here, 17 miles. Theirs also was purchased for hunting land. And they're like, if we sell and don't come up, because a lot of their kids are quitting now too, they're like, they know they're not gonna get for their land what they paid for it.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak?
You all got 2 or 3 minutes, go ahead.
If you want to sign the sheet also after you state your name and,
I'm Alan Lysdahl. I live at 15133 141st Avenue, Wadena, Minnesota. I was a forester for Hubbard County for 25 years, and I've watched the wolf population grow and grow exponentially. And I've also seen the deer population decrease at the same rate. This is an issue that's bigger than Hubbard County. I hunt bobcats with hounds in Hubbard County, and I've lost 2 dogs to wolves. I've had others tore up, incurring big vet bills. I have other friends that have lost dogs to wolves here, and they've also had big vet bills because of it. But this issue is bigger than Hubbard County. There's deer depredation all across the state. There's pet and livestock depredation all across the state. But one of the biggest things is the moose issue. The moose population in Minnesota is in dire straits. There's it's on the verge of being extirpated from the state of Minnesota. You know, and the DNR will blame it on several different things, but the only thing, you know, like climate change, deer ticks, brainworm, but one of the only things they can really do something about is controlling the wolf population. Wolves kill moose, period. They do. And that is something that can be taken care of. We can control the wolf population to benefit the moose. And you all as commissioners have something that you can do by passing this resolution to bring relief to the moose population, the deer population, livestock producers, business people of Hubbard County. And that's all I've got to say, and thank you for your time.
thank you, Alan. Is there anyone else? Okay, and I believe Ted, Jeff had sent out a resolution to us, and Ted, you had requested that we would put this on a board agenda. So this will be on the next board agenda? Jeff, are you,
That's up to your consensus.
Okay, so should we talk about this at the end of the administrative, at the end of the meeting?
Yeah,
And
that's
then,
fine.
okay, and then decide? All right, thank you, all of you who came. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Is there anything you want pulled, or else I need a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
Dave moves to approve,
I'll second.
Tom seconds, further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mike? Mike will be reading the county employee recognition.
Good morning.
Morning.
So we just have one today, but it's an important one. Human Services, Beth Vredenberg began the position of Child Support Supervisor on Monday, March 4th.
I just want to say, Beth has done a really, really good job since I've gotten here. She was the financial assistant supervisor and child support supervisor, and with the position, the new position of child support supervisor, really excited that she's going to continue to help our staff and our agency in the county as well. So I just really, really appreciate Beth and everything she's done.
Thanks, Brian. Thank you, Beth. Thanks, Mike. Okay, Jerry, do you want to come up? Jerry's here from Veteran Services, and he will give us an update. And you can take as much time as you want. If you're not done by 9:30, we'll just pause for the public hearing, and then you can resume.
All right, thank you. For now, I'm going to turn it over to Aaron, the assistant.
Okay.
Yeah, Aaron Majors, the Assistant County Veteran Service Officer. I just thought I'd start by giving you some metrics from 2023. By our count, we have 1,914 vets in our county. Right now, in our office, we have, last year, we have 150 adjudicated claims already. Right now, we have 169 active and open claims. So we are quite busy. That's an increase from 2022, and 2024 has already started out. I think we're going to be ahead of that even. We're averaging about 6 claims a week, and these are federal claims that we're doing. I haven't even got into the state stuff yet. For the state programs, the State Soldiers and Assistance Program, which we just call SSAP, for 2023, we did 30 of those, and it totaled to $34,132.
Aaron, can you give us an example? What's the difference between a federal claim and a state claim?
Okay, for the federal claim, we're actually doing a claim with the Department of Veteran Affairs. So this is something connected to military service.
Okay,
With the state claims, these are state programs put into place years ago by the Minnesota Department of Veteran Affairs to help out lower income vets with bills, with dental, with optical, things that aren't normally covered. And that's what most of these claims were dental and optical that I did for the state.
thank you.
Federal claims also include dependency indemnity compensation, which is a DIC claim for like a widow of a veteran who passed away from a service-connected condition.
Speaking of that, 65% of the vets that we serve are 65 or older, and I ran a metric this week, yesterday actually, 33% of the vets that we've gotten service-connected disabilities are 70% or higher, which is a big deal for them because of their property tax exclusion, tax breaks, and things like that you guys offer. On the federal level, with all of the claims we've done, it totals up to $27 million that we've brought in just through the claims on the federal side. 13.5 million of that is in the compensation and pension department, which is the disability, the service-connected disabilities that they would get paid for that they incurred in service. 183,000 in education, and 13.5 million of that is just medical care expenses with community and care. So they're getting it right here in the community, but the VA's paying for it.
Yeah, those numbers are from 2022. We believe 2023 will come out this summer, about June.
Yep. Other than that, outside of claims and everything, the Bemidji Vet Home's open. We've done our tours up there. It's a very nice facility. As far as we've heard so far, their accreditation so that they become an official vet home is going well so far, but that's gonna take usually around 6 months is what they said.
Oh, I would have thought that would have been done by the time they opened, since it was
They
specifically
can't do it
for that.
until they get people in, and they have to
Oh.
monitor their processes and policies and how they are actually implemented while taking care of the vets. So it's quite a process.
Hubbard County actually has a wing named after it as well, so I thought that was kind of, it was nice for Hubbard County to have that done. Not for Bemidji Vets Homes. Other things we kind of wanted to talk to, for federal issues, terra exposure, that came in the last couple of years. Toxic exposure, above and beyond Agent Orange and Camp Lejeune, can affect any of the veterans. And there's several programs that have been expanded because of the terra program. One is presumptive conditions for service connection for diseases or illnesses caused by burn pits or bad water or radiation exposure and stuff like that. So I think on the federal side, we're making good on promises to make sure that we take care of our veterans. Just this week, one of the things that was implemented under the terra program or toxic exposure, if any veteran believes that he was harmed by an exposure to a toxic substance, they can now sign up for VA healthcare. Aaron and I sat down, we kind of looked at it, and we believe Hubbard County, we've been fortunate. My predecessor and I, and then Aaron, we've always moved forward and tried to be very proactive to sign any veteran up that we can who's eligible for veteran healthcare, which includes Fargo, Bemidji, Brainerd, or St. Cloud. The majority of our veterans do operate and participate in those facilities. So again, on the federal side, that was a really good thing moving forward. On the state and local side, we continue to be busy as service officers. I'm on the finance committee for the state level for the Disabled American Veterans. Aaron and I are both involved with the Marine Corps League, the American Legion, the Disabled American Veterans. Aaron participates in the Honor Guard. And how often are you doing funerals right now?
In the winter, it gets a little slower, but we've been doing probably 2 or 3 a month,
Right.
just with the funerals.
Aaron's the chaplain for the American Legion. We're service officers for the 4 local organizations. I'm the treasurer. We're both on the executive committee for the American Legion. So on the local level, we continue to be really involved to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all our veterans in the area, and I believe we have been doing that. For the back office, several years ago, we purchased some computer equipment so we could do telehealth, and we actually did our first Board of Veteran Appeals claim at the federal level. So we're really proud that we were able to do that and represent our veterans right here locally instead of having them fly to Washington, D.C. or driving down to St. Paul. So I thought that was really neat. We've also been doing compensations claims right here in our office. So it's nice to see a vision that actually Greg Remus started. I relieved him. He wanted to do this, and then the technology we finally got moving forward, and then Aaron came in, who I am not a techie, really set it up. So we're really fortunate to be able to do what we do. I have nothing else unless you have any questions.
Any questions, yeah?
So, since it's been such a nice winter, are you gonna start the coffee times on Wednesdays pretty soon, or are you gonna wait till
We've
it
still
warms
been
up?
doing those.
Have you indoors?
Indoors.
So we're
Okay.
thinking maybe this month we might try to
Maybe
push it,
Okay,
but definitely next month we'll be outside.
Yeah, we love being outside, and, there's a couple of times where we've had inclement weather, but if March and I can get my fish house out in the parking lot, I think we're gonna try to use the ice castle this time, the Disabled American Veterans Ice Castle. But for those who don't know, we just pull up a fish house, and we make coffee, and we sit around and just talk veterans issues, and it's been a lot of fun. And for the community to drive by, they kind of say, well, what are they doing? And then they just come in and just start these conversations. So it's just another really interesting way to make sure that the community knows that we're out there and we're helping veterans.
And we're still visiting, we still get requests to visit all the nursing homes around and give veteran briefs to those who can't come in and stuff, so we still do those regularly too.
Churches, senior providers, we're doing one at Heritage, I believe, next week.
Yep.
So if anyone wants a service officer brief, we can make them 15 minutes, we can make them an hour. We're pretty good talkers. So if you have questions or you need briefs, we'll do that for you.
anybody else have anything?
No.
Well, thank you, you have our
Thanks.
support, we really appreciate
We know
what
that,
you
we
do.
really appreciate it. All right, thank you very much.
Okay, highway?
Good morning. Good morning. Just 2 items. First is just to review and approve a 2024 roadmap list and resolution designating spring road restrictions, and that they'll go on at the same time that the state puts theirs on, which will be tomorrow, actually, at midnight. And, yeah, there was a map and everything attached, I guess.
So do they go off according to the weather?
They'll go off according to as how the frost
Yep,
relieves
yep,
itself.
so
And
there's
yeah,
not-
consequently, yes, you're correct. Yes.
But there's a minimum, once they go on, they have to be on for a minimum number. Is there not a minimum?
I don't believe that's entirely true anymore, no,
Okay.
no. There was a time when they were on for a period of weeks as a minimum, but they'll go off as the frost goes out and the weather permits, so.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, Steve moves, second.
I'll second.
Okay, Ted seconds. Is there further discussion? All those in, oh, go ahead, Ted.
It's probably gonna, frost is probably gonna go up pretty quick this year, because I don't know if there was much in there to begin with.
I don't think so, and as dry as it's been especially, I think we'll see it diminish rather quickly.
Thank you.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay,
Second item here is a resolution to approve and support the Detour agreement with MNDOT on Trunk Highway 87. They're going to be utilizing a few segments of our roadways, including County Road 20, 17, and a portion of 13, and a small segment of 33 as a detour route during the construction of Trunk Highway 87, primarily between Hubbard and east of the Third Crowing Lake area, starting this spring, so.
So it's starting in spring?
Yes, that's correct, yes.
I'm curious about the detouring. Now, that's, what they're gonna do this year goes all up to that bridge at the Crowing?
It goes up to County Road 17, so it'll come up on 13, up to County Road 17, and then it'll jog over. A portion of it will go to County Road 20 at one point in time, and then up to Trunk Highway 34 and around through town. They've got another segment, as their construction goes through phases, that will go up County Road 11 for a period of time, and out Trunk Highway 34. And then another segment that's gonna go up 11 and then cross over on CASA 33 to Trunk Highway 64, and then down back around to Trunk Highway 87.
What I was wondering about is, on 87, what are they gonna do this year? I thought I've heard it was gonna go all the way up to that bridge.
Oh, on 87?
Yeah, on
Yes,
87.
that's correct, yes.
If
Yes.
that's true, then how do you get from that bridge to 13 to do the detour? I mean, are they gonna do one lane, or are they gonna do?
Well, I don't know.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know specifically what, but as far as, they're gonna detour traffic before that, though.
but you're
Before that
talking about the
bridge.
people that live in between that spot, right?
Or even before the bridge, or, you know, like where I
Yeah.
live, yeah.
Yeah, some of those folks, since they can't go all the way through east or west, they'll have to backtrack a little bit and then go up and take the detour around, so.
That's when they replaced that bridge maybe 20 years or so ago. I had to go way up towards Nevis and then over.
Yeah, I think that's, that very east end of that construction project, and it's supposedly, according to the state, only gonna last a few weeks, what they have to do there.
Okay.
That's gonna be their plan, is to go up and then cut over on 33 for a short period of time to Trunk Highway 64, so that, yeah, there's no easy way around there at all. Then that also coincidentally then coincides somewhat, there'll be a period of time with our detour on our own County Road 13 for the bridge that we're replacing over the Crowing. The state's detour and our detour will overlap for a period of time till our bridge is completed and open. But right now, their detour takes their traffic all the way around our project, so there's no conflict there. But yeah, it'll be a little bit of a nuisance for folks, everybody.
It's needed though.
Yes, it's due, definitely, yes.
I'll move to approve the resolution.
Okay? Is there a
I'll second.
Okay, Steve seconds. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Anything else, Jeff?
No, but just as I mentioned, the bridge on 13, bridge project, that construction project actually is getting underway today, so that detour is in place and up, and they are starting to remove components of that existing bridge on the Crow Wing River, so. And it's Redstone Construction that's doing the work, our prime contractor, federally funded project, and their schedule is to have that open before the 4th of July, so
Oh,
we're hoping that goes well and
okay.
carries on.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
I think we have time to do the microwaves.
Madam Chair, Board, I'm here because I'm trying to make things better and safer for our county facilities. And with discussion with Jeff, MCIT came through and they did some inspection. They noted a lot of household use appliances throughout several departments. So we're taking a step to try to upgrade the most commonly used ones, such as the microwaves, to commercial grade, so there'll be a little less chance of incident happening if they get overused and whatnot. So just looking to get approval to proceed with this purchase and get these things on order and start swapping them out.
Will you have to do anything with refrigerators eventually, or are they okay?
It's eventually.
Okay.
It was kind of a more proactive on, we were thinking the refrigerators were going to be first, but with our shifting to remote work, it's kind of lessened the usage on a lot of them. So now we have to go back through and reevaluate which departments are actually using them. Fortunately, the sheriff's department, which used a lot, theirs is already a commercial refrigerator, so that takes a big headache off of there. And plus, those things are not cheap in any capacity. So we're going to start with the microwaves, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, this wasn't a high dollar.
No, some of the commercial refrigerators have been about half of that for one, so they're not cheap. So we want to do a due diligence and really evaluate what is needed in the different departments that have refrigerators available for use for the employees.
Bobby, do I understand this correctly? There's 23 microwaves we're getting?
There'll be a total of 24. We had money budgeted this year for it. The prices were able to get a little bit lower, so the microwaves I'm getting, 23 of them will be put into use right away, and I'll have one spare in case something comes up with one. The good thing about it, I was able to get 3-year warranties on 23 of them, so hopefully we don't have any issues. The standard warranties on most of them are either 6 months to a year. So if they're getting used as well as they have been on the residential side, hopefully these things will last us a while, won't have any issues.
I guess I was kind of surprised by the number of, 23, 24.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy when I went through and we were noting them all and stuff like that, and I'm like, yeah, and actually I downsized a couple of them because a few departments had 3 or 4 of them. What tends to happen is people bring stuff in, they no longer need the house, but they don't want to just get rid of it, so they bring it in and they plug it in and use it. So some departments had 4 or 5 of them hanging out. It's like, but do you use all 4 or 5 of them? They're like, no, not really. It's like, so working with the respective department managers, we kind of narrowed down what would be a good number that would actually be utilized to its full capacity, not just taking up space and wasting money, so.
I know I have a microwave at home, as I'm sure a lot of people do. It probably gets used 3-4 times a year.
Yeah.
So I was kind of surprised that, I can see the liability type issues having to go to a commercial grade, but I was just surprised by the number of them.
Yeah, it was interesting to find out exactly how many microwaves were in use. It's also interesting to know how many actual coffee pots we have in the county, which is a crazy number too. We're not going down that road yet.
We either need to take board action or delay until after 9:30, so what would the board like to do?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay, further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Bobby.
Madam Board, have a date.
All right, it's 9:30, so we will have the hearing for the removal of the HRA Commissioner. Jeff, do you want to introduce this, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, this action is coming as a result of board action on.
Oh, sorry, yes, I did forget that. Okay, okay, Dave moves,
I'll second.
Steve seconds, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
So pursuant to board action, a few meetings ago, where the board directed us to bring forth the charges to dismiss the HRA commissioner unless she resigned. At the subsequent HRA meeting, Ms. Fake did not resign, so I followed through with the action that the board had at that point in time. I believe you've got a copy of the letter that was sent to Ms. Fake, and the primary reason for the dismissal is failure to disclose a conflict of interest, along with other behaviors. So those are the charges that are being brought. The process is she has an opportunity to comment on the charges, and at the end of that, you would take action to uphold the dismissal or overturn it if you've learned something that you think changes your mind.
Okay, thank you, Jeff.
So she'll hear the charges, will there be any back and forth, or is it just, this is what it is, she gets to speak and then we vote? I've never been through this process before.
There's really no back and forth. She has an opportunity to rebut the charges or explain the charges. You can ask questions if you have them afterwards or of her.
Okay.
I've not been through this before either.
So Kristen, would you like to start?
First of all, Ted, does this board have the copy of Darrell Bessler's email?
I don't believe so. I was gonna read it out loud today, but I didn't know. That's why I asked the question.
Would you like to do that before I start?
Sure. If I'll be allowed here too. See if I can find it real quick. Okay. In the February 17th issue of the Park Rapids Enterprise, I see the county board has decided to move ahead with the removal hearing of HRA board member Kristen Fake. I am still in Florida, so I will be unable to appear in person to speak in support of retaining Ms. Fake on the Hubbard County HRA board. I would request that you read into the record my comments when the county board deliberates this matter. Before sharing my comments, I think it would have been useful to understand the specifics as to why this action is being taken. Additionally, it would seem to have been prudent and fair if all members of the HRA board would have been contacted and given an opportunity to express their opinions regarding charges and precipitated this rather unprecedented action. In my opinion, Kristen is the most knowledgeable, and I would add caring HRA commissioner of the HRA board. Kristen brings a wealth of information and experience to the table, since in her work life she owns and is property manager of many properties. This real world experience has been invaluable to the HRA board. Kristen has a genuine concern for HRA and the tenants it serves. It is this concern for our tenants that has caused her to be allegedly accused of meddling in the day-to-day operations of the HRA. Case in point is when Kristen was recently contacted by a tenant and friend seeking help to understand why his rent increased so drastically. Kristen responded to this individual's request and need. In doing so, she learned that letters sent by the property manager, D.W. Jones, were not in line with the official actions approved by the HRA board. Sorry, I hit the wrong key here and lost my place. I would also note that upon seeing and verifying the validity of the written material, she contacted Sarah Wilcox of the HRDC to alert her of the situation. While some see this as meddling, I submit to you this would be akin to a county commissioner following up on a complaint from one of their constituents regarding some action a county agency had taken impacting their constituents. As I noted at the onset of this email, I will be unable to attend the March 5th hearing, but did want to formally voice support for retaining Kristen Fake on the HRA board. Should the county board truly desire to investigate the allegations against Ms. Fake, whatever they are, I would be most willing to provide an honest third-party perspective as the HRA board's currently longest-serving commissioner and chairman of the board for many years. And that was Darrell Bessler, and he represents my district, District 5. Thank you.
Thank you. I've served on the board of the Hubbard County Housing and Redevelopment Authority since 2019. I was appointed secretary in January of 2023. I was reappointed to this position in January of 2024. This hearing is to decide whether the charges brought against me by the county administrator are valid. The charges are these. 1, I've intervened in daily management of HRA properties, which has led to strained relations with D.W. Jones Management. 2, I hired a contractor and did not disclose a conflict of interest. As to the first charge, on January 1st, I received a phone call from a tenant at Meadows Edge stating he received a letter from D.W. Jones Property Management referring rent increase. It was his understanding that his rent was going to increase from $790 to $1,060 a month, an over 33% increase. He was very upset. I attempted to calm him down and explained there must be a misunderstanding. I suggested he go down and talk to the person in the office. He stated he'd tried that, but the door was locked, and the sign on the door said he had to call D.W. Jones with any questions regarding his lease. I asked him if he could take a screenshot of the letter and send it to me. He was not technologically able to do so. At this point, I told him I would call Sarah Wilcox of the HRDC and attempt to get him an explanation. I called Sarah Wilcox and did not receive a reply until that afternoon. At that time, she stated she had no knowledge of a rent increase letter and would look into it. The tenant called me 5 times over the next 2 days. On Wednesday, he called me crying. I asked if he had heard either from Sarah Wilcox or D.W. Jones, and he said he had not heard from anyone. He begged me to help him as he was worried he would have to move. I told him I was in the neighborhood and I could stop over to take a look at the papers that he had. I met him in the parking lots. I asked if he had brought the papers down with him, and he had not. He said he wanted me to come up and that he had some things to show me. I went up to his apartment and I read the letter from D.W. Jones. I assured him there had been a mistake and I would again try to get him an answer. I copied the letter, and before I left, he asked me if I could address his concerns about the condition of the property. I documented his complaint with numerous pictures. I also took pictures of the notice on the locked door stating that any lease questions needed to be addressed by phone. That afternoon when I got home, I sent pictures of the property and the rent increase letter to Sarah Wilcox and my entire board. I also CC'd Naomi Carlson, Executive Director of the HRDC, and Ted Van Kampen. This was not directly intervening in the daily management of HRA properties. This was acting as a concerned board member of the HRA. To the second charge, according to the charges presented to me by the county administrator, it is stated that I hired Kelly Van Den Eyck to perform services for the HRA. I did not hire anybody. I was never authorized to hire subcontractors. No HRA board member is. When the furnace went out at one of our properties, I suggested to my board that I knew a contractor that could winterize the properties. Sarah Wilcox subsequently reached out to me via text asking for that individual's number. I called her, and while speaking with her, we discussed that ultimately the initial contractor was unavailable. However, I did know someone else that could do the work for a reasonable price. At that time, I offered that Kelly Van Den Eyck had done work for me in the past. I provided his phone number, she called him, and subsequently, she hired him. She then called me back asking if she could leave the keys with me to give to Mr. Van Den Eyck. It is also alleged I did not disclose a conflict of interest. According to the statute, a conflict of interest is defined as having personal financial interest. Mr. Van Den Eyck is his own person, has his own residence, and his own finances. I do have a personal relationship with him, but not a financial relationship. Subdivision 1 of that same statute refers to an action which could substantially affect a commissioner's financial interest. Bottom line, a $500 job hardly affects my financial interest. There was no conflict of interest to disclose because the situation did not financially benefit me. All I have heard are allegations and innuendos. I have not seen or heard anything that supports that there are strained relationships with D.W. Jones Property Management because of me. I've never received an email or a phone call from D.W. Jones staff. I've never received an email or a phone call from Sarah Wilcox or any of the HRDC staff regarding unprofessional or inappropriate behavior on my part. I would like to point out, as so eloquently stated by my co-commissioner in the email read, my board has not even been given the opportunity to weigh in on this subject. In fact, my board went so far as to reappoint me to a second term as secretary less than 4 months ago. If there was a problem, that appointment would have never taken place. I'd lastly like to address the alleged email referred to on February 6th. Shar Christensen alluded to an email from D.W. Jones stating they would not work with the HRA as long as I was in this position. If that email exists, I have not seen it. Shar stated D.W. Jones had identified a property manager for the HRA properties. However, they refused to follow through if I remained a member of this board. Neither Sarah Wilcox nor the executive director of the HRDC had ever heard this complaint, as they both stated at the February 12th HRA meeting. On February 12th, I declined to resign my position on the HRA board at the urging of my commissioner. Interestingly enough, the very next day, the HRA board received an email that D.W. Jones acquired property management services, even without receiving my resignation. In conclusion, Minnesota State Statute 469.010 requires the charges against me must be substantiated in order to remove me from my position on the HRA board. The definition of substantiate is to establish by proof or competent evidence. This has not been accomplished. Today's hearing is the direct result of persons in this room carrying out a personal agenda. Therefore, let this stand as my official resignation from the Hubbard County Housing and Redevelopment Authority, effective immediately. I quit.
All right, thank you. So there is no action needed to be taken.
The only action would be to accept the resignation.
Are there any questions about the hearing? Questions or discussion about the hearing before we close the hearing, before we could take action?
Was there any communication from D.W. Jones about some of these allegations?
Yes. I spoke directly with Lori, who said she could not hire somebody. And the piece that was not addressed is that D.W. Jones staff felt threatened or intimidated by her behavior on more than one occasion.
Since this board is the one that makes that decision, why didn't they show up today, or at least send something to us, or to us through you?
Didn't believe it was necessary. Jonathan didn't believe it was necessary at this point. This doesn't. The conflict of interest is verified. The conflict of interest, Ms. Fake stated that Kelly Van Den Eyck was his own person, had his own house, had his own this, had his own that. His house is held in a contract for deed with Kristen Fake. That's an irrefutable conflict of interest. Any money that he makes from a job referred by the HRA benefits her directly because he's paying her for the lease for the contract for deed on the house that he owns. It is substantiated. And when I presented that to Attorney Frieden, he said I didn't really need to go any further than that.
Well, she resigned, so we don't need to ask any more questions.
Anything else, or should we move to close the closed session, move out of the closed session?
I'll make a motion to move out of the closed session.
Okay, is there a second?
Public hearing, actually.
Or public hearing, I'm sorry,
Yep.
yes, public hearing.
You'll correct the verbiage, won't you?
Yep,
I'll second.
Steve seconds. Okay, further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Do we have one question now where we have an opening, so,
Before you ask that, does anybody need to move to accept a resignation, Jeff, or is,
I believe that motion to accept the resignation would be appropriate.
okay,
Also moved.
okay, Dave moves.
My question is, would that be something that the HRA board has to deal with, because that's the board that she's resigning from?
The appointment is made by the Hubbard County Board
Okay.
under the recommendation of HRA. So I believe that authority would lie here.
Yeah, I think so, because I just had a commissioner resign from the BOA board, and then that's further down on the agenda today for,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Dave moved to accept the resignation. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Steve seconds. Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
now the position is open.
Okay, so that would be Steve, so
Yep.
then Steve will have to bring forth a name to the board here.
Recently, we've been posting vacancies on the website for a period of time. Interested parties have been referred to the commissioner in that district, and they'll bring a recommendation to the board. So we'll probably have to look at the timetable. Today's March 5th. I believe it'd be relatively easy to take letters of interest for the next 3 weeks and have something for the first week in April, which would mean we'd miss one HRA meeting, third Monday, correct?
March, yeah. I was just saying, unless Steve has somebody in mind.
I don't have anyone particular in mind at this time.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, are we ready to move on? Okay, Human Services, come on up, Brian.
Madam Chair, Board, the agenda item I have today is a resolution for a letter of support for Clay County. They are proposing or looking into starting a psychiatric regional treatment facility for youth 21 and under. I was very, very, very much in favor of supporting this based on the lack of places to put youth right now. Within the last 3 weeks, we had the first time it's ever happened here in Hubbard County, but we had a youth that would not be accepted anywhere. And we had her at our office with social workers there around the clock. And it's sad. It is. It really is, because we can't provide the type of the help that they need. And if you look through, there's a letter that states all the facts. I do just want to share one that really, it's on page 4, the second, or the third bullet. The nonprofit Mental Health in Minnesota reports the number of Minnesota children screened online for mental health problems increased 373%, or 1,662 to 7,882 between 2019 and 2020. And we all know what happened after 2020, or in 2020. I can only imagine that it skyrocketed from there. There is a lack of beds available, and for Clay County to take this on and want to do this, I think that it is it's awesome. It is really, really awesome, and it will save the counties and the state's money, because the only facilities that we currently have that we can use are out of state, Missouri, and they're $2,000 to $3,000 a day. And that's where our biggest costs come from in human services. And in fact, I was at my meetings yesterday in Beltrami County, and they had their first ever youth civil commitment, which is unheard of. And that youth will now be at Anoka Regional Treatment Facility with violent adults. But they called everywhere, and everywhere is full. 9-month wait at some places up to a year. So I would just recommend that the board approve and sign a resolution in support, and we will, and Human Services, we will try to do whatever we can to help Clay County do this.
Now, I will add that just yesterday, Shar and I were sitting on an MRC meeting, and Representative Fisher, I think it was, that was speaking there, and this seems to have some traction at the state legislature to address these issues
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Which is nice to see.
Yeah, it's a full-blown crisis for the youth, and the solution, I don't know if I did. I would definitely be president or something, because it's just we don't know how to fix it. We have to start somewhere. So
I just read a really interesting article that talked about how mental health in youth increased. It started in 2008 when the cell phones came out, because kids don't live their lives anymore. They live their lives through their phone, which is, we all know where that leads. And so these numbers are just continually to increase. And then the article went on to say, these aren't even numbers with COVID, because
Correct.
then it skyrocketed to a whole nother level.
correct. Isolation tends to be something, if introduced at a young age, isolation exponentially increases the risk of and the result of mental health in youth and adults. I mean, you see it on the other end of the spectrum. If you have an individual, an aging individual that is at home by themselves for, 5 years, they start to decline. Whereas, and I can speak in my own case, my grandmother, she was home for less than a year and started to decline. She moved into a assisted living facility, and that was 5 or 6 years ago, and she's 93 and sharp as a whip. It makes a big deal. So, and that's one thing that in our agency that we do. We have a lot of things that are helping to help kids. So to kids to get out and to do things, and so it is sad.
So what did you end up doing with that individual that you had 24-hour care? You must have.
We eventually found a family placement
Okay.
out of state.
Okay.
So, and that's, when we had to send 2 social workers to the state of Texas to do a evaluation on the home because of the issues that were present, and it turned out awesome, like absolutely amazing. And it was really, we were all really worried, but yeah, but when other counties have had kids for over a week, and you're running 2 social workers 24/7 watching the child, because the liability version of it is, what do you do?
Do you remember at AMC were you at that presentation?
Yes, I was.
Because that happened, I can't remember what county it was, and.
Ramsey.
and- Was it Ramsey?
Or
So-
no, right.
I don't think it was Ramsey.
No.
But to make a long story short, they stuck with this person, and, they stuck with it long-term, and they had found, I don't know if it was a family in between, but this person has now completed college.
Yes.
And is doing really well. But they had to do it for several days.
Mhm.
Their staff had to take this
Yep.
child.
Yep. Trying to remember, his name is
can't
Brian,
remember
but
either,
it's you're starting to see that more and more. We've never really had to cross that bridge of having staff on location, and we're not really set up for it either, and it's I'm again, this facility will be an amazing thing for our region if they can get it done. And again, it does have traction, and there will be more. I believe there will be more that will come together. So
Do you know where they're gonna put this in? Do you have an idea?
I don't think that they necessarily have an exact plan yet. Just based on, they just need to apply for the funding and get their ducks in a row first.
I had a conversation with Clay County Administrator Steve Larson, and he asked me, this was at the legislative conference, and he asked me if this had come before our board yet, and it didn't, because it came while Brian was out for a few days. So we touched base right afterwards, and I believe that they've actually identified either sites or buildings for
Okay.
this. If you read the next steps, it says, Clay County would secure the facility and then be looking for the partner to develop it and operate it. So I believe that they actually have a plan in hand. I haven't seen the bonding bill yet, but his ask was that we would support this so that they could take that forward to support for bonding.
I was just wondering if, this sort of issue comes up with, even with Northwest Juvenile, it might be an alternative instead of someone
Correct.
having to go to Northwest Juvenile to be in a safe environment. This would be a good option instead. Plus
and-
a more positive atmosphere perhaps.
Right, and what we strive for, especially in youth, is the least restrictive, because you want to try that first. You don't want to just go right to a secure facility like Northwest. And we've had to place kids at Northwest that it doesn't do them, it actually causes harm. They go down. Whereas, this will free up some room at Northwest Juvenile Center too, once it's underway, so.
So yesterday at MRC, there were 3 different legislatures that shared, and Paul Ucky was one of them, and he talked about how when county resolutions are passed for whatever reason, it carries weight with the legislatures. So for us to support this, not only individually, but then as a county board says something. I'll move to approve the resolution. Okay, further discussion? Did you want to say something, Todd?
No, I was getting ready to get closer to the
Okay.
microphone.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Awesome, thank you all so much, and thank you, Madam Chair. And then as soon as I get that resolution, I will forward it on to the Clay County.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Eric, do you want to come up? Okay. You can just, since this is your board, you can, even though it's my district, you can introduce the,
Sure. So the item I have for the board this morning is an appointment to a vacancy that we have on our Planning Commission Board of Adjustment. The vacancy is in District 2, which is Char's district, due to the recent resignation of Mark Peterson. And so, as Jeff had mentioned, we had posted online notice for the public that this vacancy existed and that they could submit letters of interest in filling the position if they had such. And we received a letter from Larry Baumgartner, who is the chair of the Arago Township Board. He's also got a decade-plus experience in the building trades, construction arena. So he would bring a good background that would fit well with the board, and actually is kind of a similar background to what Mr. Peterson had with the building profession. So what I have for the board this morning would be the recommendation from Char that Mr. Baumgartner be appointed to that vacancy in District 2 on the Planning Commission Board of Adjustment.
I will move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, further discussion?
Yeah, I know, being on the planning commission with Mark Peterson, it was good to have somebody with that knowledge, the construction knowledge, and just to bounce things off of, to answer questions that I or other commission members may have. So I think not knowing Larry myself, it sounds like he would be a good addition.
I know Larry, he's a very good choice, I think. He's also a good pickleball player, too.
And I'd just like to say, no, with an HRA opening, we did have more than one person that sent letters of interest, and so I think it's a wonderful new format that people that are interested can email their interest, and then some people we don't even know are interested, so. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. And then if I may, I just had one informational item for the board in case you're not aware of it, and it's in regard to a bill that's in the House. This session, it's House File 4241, And it's not a good bill in that it concerns the state building code. And the proposal would be to modify the current exemption that allows counties to not have to administer the code, to require them to begin administration of the code by January 1st of 2030. As you can imagine, that would be a tremendous change in what we do and involve a lot more additional staff resources to administer that, get up to speed with getting people that are certified in the code, et cetera. So I've expressed my concern with it through our County Planning and Zoning Administrator Association Legislative Committee, and that seems to be the consensus of others there as well. But I certainly wanted to make the board aware that you can add that to your list of bills to keep an eye on.
Is that the same bill that requires you to hire a contractor to change a light switch or an outlet?
No, it's not that same one, but
Or paint.
Or,
Yeah, that's the one that got me.
So would this be, you would have to oversee all building? So it would be kind of like countywide zoning, or how would this affect?
it would basically push us toward that, yes, because there would otherwise be no way to administer the building code and we wouldn't have the ability to know when construction began without starting to require permits countywide.
But
you'd have to
other
hire an
people
inspector.
are already doing this, you know, you have an inspection with the electrical, you have an inspection with plumbing, you have, so what is the state's reasoning behind this?
That I have not heard, other than I can just kind of assume from the date that they have for this to take place, it's part of everything else related to 2030
Yeah, the Great Reset.
that they're pushing.
There have been several incidents. I think you might remember a few years ago when the roof on the Thumper Pond building collapsed. And the media came out and as they do, and demanded, somebody's got to be responsible for this, and said, well, who's the building inspector? Why didn't they do this? Well, at that point in time, it was, and I think it's still probably true, that about half the counties in the state do not enforce the state building code, right? And enforcing the state building code wouldn't put in place an opportunity to inspect an existing building. It would just be an opportunity to inspect it as it was being built or modified, right? So it wouldn't even fix that situation. That doesn't mean that so I think a lot of situations like that have gotten like that. I don't know that there's not pressure from contractor associations who are advocating for these things, but the only way, if this became law, for us to enforce the state building code would be for us to go to countywide zoning. And then you have to enforce the building code, which is significantly more onerous than just countywide zoning. I think we estimated 2 or 3 staff to do countywide zoning.
Yeah, best guess for a starting point.
Just for a starting point. And then building code would require additional people. So, I mean, we would probably be adding at least $500,000 a year payroll and environmental services to make that happen.
Which means more permit fees.
So,
Well, the permit fees go way up when you enforce the building code.
Then you have to think about enforcement as well.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah, it's a significant
huge.
proposal.
The irony is, that was pointed out by some other county planning staff, was that in recent years, you may be able to recall, there were pushes in sessions to try to reduce the fees that counties were able to charge for permitting. And now this kind of runs counter to that initiative. So, yeah, this would.
Sounds like something should email to MRC.
I was just thinking the same thing, and AMC, because this will affect all counties. I will do that.
It doesn't even begin to get into the issue of whether there's sufficient certified individuals that you could even pull from to do this, so.
Is this a House bill or a Senate bill?
It's House File
House file, okay.
4241.
50241, okay, I'm gonna look this up.
4241.
50241?
No, just House File 4241.
There isn't a 5 in there.
And the upside, I guess, to it is that it's a quick read. All the proposed changes are on the first page.
It's hard to keep up.
Yes, and they were talking yesterday at MRC, I can't remember how many thousands of bills have been introduced, but some of these, I'm digressing now, but I'm using this as an example, because there was a bill that's been introduced and it's moved out of committee for, childcare. So any child 2 months or older will need to submit their vaccine, schedule with a child care provider. So that moved out of committee and now it's just sitting there. And so if somebody wants to move it into the omnibus bill, they can. And so this would be another example, if it moves out of committee and it just sits there, anybody then can move it into the omnibus bill and then it just gets lost as everything passes. So Paul touched on that yesterday, how important it is for whoever the bills are to contact the authors and then also the chairs of the committee to let them know how we're feeling, whether you're pro or against. So, thank you for bringing this forth, Eric, I appreciate that.
Since we're talking about legislature, you want me to touch on the other one and be done with it?
No, let's leave, yeah, because we actually might take up with a resolution, although if MRC and AMC doesn't take this up, I might put this on the agenda for us to discuss passing a board resolution, because this affects county dollars.
And put a significant damper on contractors and
It will,
their
and it
timelines.
will delay projects,
It'll delay projects and drive up the cost of housing,
yes,
all the way around.
We have a lot of angry townships too.
yes. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for the good news, Eric. Sure.
Well, at least you delivered it with a smile.
Legislative time, that's always good news.
Okay, we're up to administrator.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Two items are relatively simple, and the third one was introduced. It's, you have a copy of a letter on your desks. The first item is the termination of shared service agreement with Beltrami County, and that's a good thing because Andrea Waleski will be here on April 1st. So this is authorizing me to send a letter to their administrator canceling services effective March 31st.
The only question I have is, because I've seen this before, where people get hired and then they don't actually work a day because if some offer comes up or whatever the case may be. So then are we simply able to just re-up it with Beltrami County?
Well, remember, the original agreement said that they would not extend it past April 30th, so
Oh,
I would
okay.
say that in the unlikely event that everything that I've heard is we're in good shape.
Okay, good.
But, no. No, probably not, because in that amount of time it would change.
Does he find a place to live? That could be a thing right there.
Yeah, unfortunately, we really can't ask too much about that. But wait, I know she's coming.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'm waiting for a motion.
I'll move.
Okay, Dave moves.
I'll second.
10 seconds. Further discussion. We're just thrilled that we have somebody coming that has high qualifications, so. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
And the second item came up as a result of a exchange of a couple of emails. And look at that, I have a typo in here. So this is relative to the unanswered question of whether or not we have a relationship with the JDAI program. And the last thing that I was able to find out is in 2017, the board passed a resolution accepting a grant from the Office of Justice to create the JDI program. But we have no continuing relationship with the JDI program. And so this is to bring forward the idea of every time we ask probation, every time we talk to social services, every time we talk to the attorney's office, they all say that we have sufficient resources and we're not using JDI and wouldn't do that and would just put more layers of process in each one of those situations. So finally, someone brought it forward to say simply we should make a recommendation and a board action to officially opt out of the JDI program. So bring it forward for discussion or action.
Yeah, this is, JDAI was something I started, it's only met basically remotely. I started attending the meetings because of my involvement with Northwest Juvenile Center. And it got to be where I was the only one attending besides their staff. I did reach out to the principals here in Hubbard County that deal with juveniles, and they all said, like Jeff was saying, that they feel that they've have the things in place, and that, you know, that they didn't feel that JDAI was really, in a sense, necessary for our county. And because I don't deal with the youth personally myself, I go off of what the recommendations of these people in Hubbard County that do. And like I say, with me being the only one attending the meetings, of course, the staff with JDAI, I think are really good people. You know, they do good work. And I was kind of asked to reach out and see if I could revive this, and it didn't seem like it was gonna take off at all. So I thought it would be prudent to officially, as we have it here, officially opt out, so that all the questions are answered.
Okay, board wishes?
I guess I'll make the motion then to officially opt out of the North Region JDAI program.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And then the third item, we've been talking about this for a while. We've got the tax forfeited sale coming up, and I've been working with the city of Akeley and the city of Park Rapids and the county's interests in withholding some of the parcels for sale for public use or development. This is that triangle on the northeast side of the railroad tracks, directly west of the Potlatch Board Factory. And I'm asking for the board approval for us to submit this letter to withhold this from the sale with the intent of purchasing it, for holding it for future development. It seems like a property that's going to be developed for a related industry. We've had interest expressed several times. We don't actually have anything on the table saying someone's gonna buy it right now, so we're buying it to hold it for future development. But that's what I'm asking is that the board would allow me to send this letter on behalf of the county to withhold that from the sale with the intent of purchasing it for future development. Completely wide open I might just roll into the meetings to note the March work session items. I'm gonna be coming to you with a review and a revision of the 5-year capital plan and an idea of additional TFL properties that we should hold for future development in Varden Township. So this isn't the first one I'm asking for, or it is the first one, but it's not the last one. And part of the reason for doing this now was because we thought we had interest in it. Right now, I don't have commitment. The reason for bringing it forward next week for larger conversation is because of the legislation that's likely to happen relative to tax forfeiture process, that we may have one chance to acquire some of those parcels up north for development. So that we won't have Chamber of Commerce, they'll be here in April with their update at the work session. So next week, you're gonna have to listen to me about capital planning and some ideas relative to economic development in the northern part of the county. But for right now, I just answer questions that you might have. I think there was a value of just about $50,000 on that parcel, which is 17 acres, so about just under $3,000 an acre. That seems relatively consistent with what we have for value, about $2,500 an acre on the TFL parcels up north, and then some amount for the timber value on those parcels. I believe Corey was estimating about $6,000 on a full 40 of value. So those would be the costs to bring that forward. The way to have the money in the Economic Development Fund to do that would be to look in 24 and 25, and we've typically been putting 500 in economic development, 1.1 in capital. we're not spending it all in '24 in capital, so it would be bringing some of that forward. The 50 is there, that's not a problem to take care of this one. The conversation relative to the 5-year capital plan and the purchase of additional parcels will mean we'd have to make a revision to that 5-year plan to be able to do that. We won't have to overspend, we'll just have to reallocate between capital and economic development. Now, we might not have to have a meeting next week.
I thought Eric was coming forward, I thought he was on the March work session to talk about lakes and development.
He is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Eric's gonna be talking to us about, small lakes versus larger lakes in Hubbard County, and do we wanna do anything as far as development like campgrounds according to lake size?
Okay.
He's
Well,
gonna
then
bring
we'll-
that forward.
Then we'll have a good conversation next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, excuse me, going back then to the wolf, the people that were here for the wolves. I know the original email talked about discussing at the work session. Do we want to do that, or do we want to have them come and present? I mean, that's what I'm assuming. If we do it for a board meeting, that group would come and present to us again, and I just want to get it figured out here.
I'm actually fine with putting it on a board meeting.
Okay.
We already have the resolution from them.
Yeah.
And
I think
after hearing today, I think
Support.
consensus would be we would at least put it on for a vote. Is that okay with Tom and
Yeah,
Steve?
yeah, I'd like to, I mean, they kind of educated me a bit of just how much of a problem it's become. So, yeah, I would like to hear from them.
25 calves?
Yeah, yeah.
And Cal, I had talked to him earlier, Cal, he's got pictures on his camera,
Wow.
of the packs.
Yeah, yeah. And that's, some of the calls I've been getting, they talk about their trail cameras, and they're having more wolves on their trail cameras than deer, and that's kind of concerning. I know I have several cameras out, and I haven't gotten any wolves on them, but I don't have the deer numbers on the cameras like I used to either.
Well, I know someone who lost a household dog to a timber wolf attack in their front yard, like from
Oh,
B
my
to
goodness.
Jeff, away from their doorstep. So, yeah, it's significant.
So is it board consensus we can put that on the next board meeting agenda and not have it on the work session? Okay, all right.
I have one question about this tax forfeited, the future laws that are coming up on tax forfeited land. When we purchase it, who are we gonna be purchasing it from, since it's already tax forfeited?
We'll be redeeming it out of tax forfeiture, and it will be deeded to the county so that we have clear title to be able to sell it at an appropriate development time. We'll hold it in escrow as we were intending to do everything from this sale, and then we'll distribute based on the new rules, or if it's excluded because it's an older forfeiture, then we'll allocate that money based on the current rules. So the sale of a tax forfeited property goes over here into a pool. Typically, we get 50% of that to operator parks, and it's split out to the other ways, whatever the allocation is. So we're paying the taxing entities. The city of Akeley is asking for the parcel next to their city hall, and they are asking for public use. And the current rule allows them to ask for that, for you to consider transferring that to them for no cost. Okay, because it's a public use. Planning for future development is not a public use, so if we want it, we'll have to pay for it. But the good thing is we'll have it clear and free title. The city of Park Rapids is probably also looking for some lots within the city for housing development, but housing development doesn't necessarily, it kind of gets gray as to whether or not remediation of blight or a public use, you can consider transferring those for free or at a reduced cost. For future development is kind of full fare. So they'd be purchasing it at the appraised value.
So speculating a little bit, if we conveyed property for public use to one of the cities and $0 were paid, there would be nothing to go back to the previous owner then?
Correct. Correct. There's two parcels in the city of Akeley that I made the city clerk aware of. One is an undeveloped parcel that's a residential platted parcel, and one is one that is kind of dumpy, it would qualify as blight, right? So I told them that if they, and I had a conversation with Mary or however we would do this, if they wanted to acquire those parcels for housing development, we could find partners to build houses on there. And even if they had to pay $10,000 for one and $0 for the other, they'd have two parcels for $10,000, clean the blight up, bring in some housing, and you know, solidify those neighborhoods. Now, it's completely up to them as to whether or not they want to take action on that. Otherwise, those parcels will go to the sale as planned. But there are several in the city of Park Rapids that I know they're planning to withhold, asked to withhold from the sale. So on the 19th, you will see a lot of, if you vote to authorize me to send this letter, you're gonna see this on the 19th to take action. So you're representing the tax forfeited land and you're representing the county in this case.
I'll move to authorize Jeff to sign the letter to have those tax forfeited lands withheld for future purchase by the county.
Just this parcel.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, before our committee reports, I have one more thing in that I would like to put on the work session next week. Dave and I attended MRC and, yesterday, and I think Dave had brought this up to the board maybe at the last board meeting about the White Earth lands being given back. Well, the commissioner from Becker County yesterday spoke on it, and they're passing a resolution today at their board meeting against it. And interestingly enough, he said there were people from the tribes that have contacted him that said they don't want this land. And secondly, he had, I didn't jot down fast enough, but he said in 1985, the land was actually purchased and the monies were given back to the tribe and to the families that they needed to go to. And so the state is looking to return this land, but where this leads also for county involvement is how it affects tourism, and then how it could potentially go forward into county tax forfeited land. Dan, Dave, if you want to talk a little bit about that, because I'd like us to put this on the work session next week.
Yeah, they formed part of the bill requires them to form a task force to look into returning school trust and tax forfeited land back to the tribal entities. So yeah, there's concerns with if that happens, who's gonna manage the timber? And how is that going to affect tourism in those areas? And not only would, this might start at White Earth, but it may, and I'm sure would be a template to move across the rest of the tribal lands across the state or on the reservation. So it's concerning, and especially in the case of this where the land was already purchased and paid for. So I'm not quite understanding how this would be real beneficial to anybody, including tribal members.
So Jeff, would that allow you enough time to get the resolution, but also to get the history? Because I found that really interesting. Or do you want to put this on?
No,
Well, we can't wait till April.
No, we can't wait till April. And
Yeah.
I'd actually, I'm actually gonna make a suggestion that you put more work on my desk
Okay.
for next week.
Okay.
That we just generally have a conversation next week about legislative topics that you're currently interested in or might be affecting the county. So if you're aware of a House file or a Senate file or anything else that you'd like us to put on a list and address next week and follow through to the end of this, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm gonna try to get updates on the proposed state assessed property tax thing that's moving. As much as we were told 2 weeks ago, this isn't happening. It seems to be gathering steam. About the proposed legislation for how to handle tax forfeited lands, I need to get an update on that. This tribal issue, that issue related to the building code, those are things where at least I need to find copies of them and give you a paragraph or two on what I think their impact might be or the likelihood or where we think they're going. The good news is I think on Friday I can steal this from the MACA group when we have our legislative update. But I think that rather that in addition to bringing forward this current item, we should probably, in a timely manner, bring up the other items that might affect us. So if you're aware
I
of,
have two more I'll
if you
send
have
you.
two more, just send me the emails. I'll read through them. I'll give you a paragraph or two and try to get an idea of where they are. A reminder, last year there were 10,000 bills introduced and 110 laws. So you kind of have to cut through the chaff on some of these and find the ones that are getting traction, especially the ones that get traction and run through an omnibus bill or get packed in with something else because they're harder to track.
We actually had quite a discussion at the end of MRC about how important it is for counties to, because there's more and more bills that are affecting either freedoms for people or else county issues. And I found it really frustrating between AMC and MRC. You know, they're trying to be really careful. We talked about the North Star Act and you know, the lobbying people that we had hired. They didn't want to take it on, and because it supposedly isn't going to pass.
By one vote.
By one vote, and so the consent. Well, the people that spoke up at MRC said you have to be prepared. One vote doesn't guarantee anything. And then I emailed Julie after the meeting at AMC and asked her if they were prepared. And then I gave Julie a bill that I'm going to send to Jeff that has to do with First Amendment rights in Minnesota for religious organizations. That the hearing is in the Senate tomorrow. The hearing was in the House last week, and the House, the person that introduced the bill admitted that he had intentionally left out wording for religious freedom. And so more and more counties need to be involved and be aware of what's going on. And the consensus yesterday, I thought, was MRC, we're expecting then the people that we've hired to get involved, even if they're not one of our priority things, because some of this stuff we don't know about until the session starts.
And I received a phone call from Neil, the AMC president, because I responded to what the board had said in their newsletter, their response to the North Star Act bill, and we're more aligned. We're almost 100% aligned on rural areas and how we think, but there gets to be a time with some of these social bills that you know are going to be destructive to rural counties, all counties for that matter, that we got to quit tiptoeing around these things and start sharing our opinion, whether that's through MRC, AMC, or not, because what's the justification for not? There is none. Like I asked a question at MRC the other day, can anybody tell me one good thing that would come out of being a sanctuary state? Just give me one. And nobody can ever answer that, because there isn't anything. It's purely a political bill, you know, with political purposes. So why are we afraid to voice an opinion on that? Because the damage that would be done to counties would be substantial. So.
Well, and Luke shared yesterday at AMC that Ramsey County, the commissioners were really against it. They had received a phone call from Denver wanting to busload, you know, illegals up to here, and they said, we can't even take care of our homeless. What are we going to do with the rest?
So it's, you know, my whole take to the MRC yesterday was, it's time to stand up a little bit and be more bold. Yes, look through it through the county lens and you know, and stay in your lane about how it will affect the counties. You know, don't get off into, you know, state or federal things. But if it has an effect on counties and is going to be damaging to what you want in your county, you have an obligation to say something, I think. And a lot of people started to speak up, and a little bit of the, I wouldn't say finger pointing, but a little bit of pressure was put back on the MRC leadership that, no, we need to be doing these things. And
Yeah, 'cause
I know
somebody-
you want to thread that needle and you don't want to be offensive or anything, but this is getting bad. Some of these things are really bad if they get passed. And
So
if we
one-
sit
okay.
silent and say nothing, then we're pretty complicit.
So one thing I didn't know about that was brought up yesterday was the Excel Energy transmission line, and I haven't been following that. A commissioner brought that up. And so, Excel would receive $2 billion of the green reset money to do this, and they'd put the line up, but it would be for wind turbines. They wouldn't allow any other type of transmission to go through that line, but renewables. And so those counties that this is in are asking us, MRC, to take a look and a stand on this, because in the long run, it's gonna cost Minnesota residents way more money. So that was just an example of,
And just, and there's somebody from ag related too, just about farming in general.
Yes.
And how
yes,
the whole positions on energy is killing farmers right now. I mean, it's really hurting their business.
this person said that some tractors are actually taking to the windmills and thinking about just taking them down on their land. So it's getting interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I would encourage you, the next MRC meeting is, it's Zoom the first Monday of April. We did talk about, they're looking into, Jeff, whether this qualifies for how the meeting, like our county board meeting now has to follow statute. They weren't sure, because we didn't conduct any business that required a motion. And so most people were Zooming from their homes. So they were gonna look into whether we had to list addresses of where we were gonna be at our Zoom meetings. But the next meeting will be a Zoom.
Yeah, and they were gonna talk to AMC about that, because
Yeah.
they should have the answer for that, because they function the same way.
They do. Typically, when you go to a legislative conference, when you go to one of those things, it's considered educational, which is why it's kind of excluded from that.
And they're trying to do actual business at an in-person meeting.
Yep,
Yeah.
so I think if they do that, then that's much easier. If they do information in between and then they notice the actual business meetings, then they're probably covered.
Okay, committee reports? Who wants to start? Everybody shouts at once.
I guess I can start.
Okay.
Let's see, had a Mississippi Headwaters Board meeting. This time it was in Cass County's Land Department in Bacchus, Minnesota. So on my way home, I got to drive Highway 87. That's gonna be redone.
It's bad shape, isn't it?
It's terrible.
Band-aids it up a little bit.
Kind of a short meeting. Oh, dang, I meant to bring this up. Let's see. Had, of course, normal business, talked about the press releases that we put out. Tim Terrell, our executive director, testified before the House Legacy Finance Committee for the LLMRC monies and stuff like that. Let me bring this up real quick here. Agendas. Okay. We also had a couple of Hubbard County variants. As you may know, well, let me go back to the House Financing Committee. It was the Lassard Sam's Outdoor Heritage Council funding recommendations. And like I say, our executive director, Tim Terrell, spoke on the needs and where the money goes and how the Mississippi Headwaters Board has used some of their shares. Then we had the planning and zoning. As many of you know, Mississippi Headwaters Board, we have jurisdiction over the first 400 miles of the Mississippi River. And that includes not only the river, but the lakes that the rivers go through. We had Mr. Wyman variance for Hubbard County. Let me get to what he was looking for. He was looking to exceed the 25% lot impervious surface threshold. They had a stormwater plan. It passed our Planning Commission Board of Adjustment, and knowing those people and the due diligence that they do, I always find it pretty easy to to pass these at the Mississippi Headwater Board level. And it did pass there again at the Mississippi Headwaters Board level. And then we had to approve the amendment to allow schools in our shoreline ordinance. And just because if any of those schools are on the Mississippi River or Mississippi River lakes, it would, like I say, obviously have to go through the Mississippi Headwaters Board. We had reviewed the ordinance amendment, and that, again, we approved to add that to the Mississippi Headwaters Board's use our ordinance plan, the stuff that we okay. Let's see, then we had, we were supposed to have our board pictures, but since some of us were remote and some of us were in person, it was kind of hard to have a board picture of the Mississippi Headwaters Board. It hasn't been updated since my first year on that board. Formed a committee, a budget committee, and of course, being the board chair, I got to be on that committee, and we're gonna meet for the first time this Friday. And that was really about it. We talked a little bit about we always have the miscellaneous, which would include legislative updates. Currently, there wasn't anything at that point that had really come through the state legislature for us to address. And let's see. Beltrami County did share that they're talking about getting a percentage added to the sales tax for their new sheriff's jail that they're putting in there. And let's see, I also had Northwest Juvenile Center. There was just the officers meeting. We went over the financial reports. Our number of clients that we serve is down a little bit, so of course, it's kind of a mixed thing. I think I've made this comment before, is if you have less juvenile delinquents coming to our facility, in one respect, that's good, but then also, that's how the center makes their dollars. So it's kind of a catch-22 type of thing. But the numbers were down a little bit, so the dollars were down a little bit, but no concerns there. Let's see, we talked about the facility updates. Let's see, the new dishwasher is in. Erica and Mackenzie are working on a 2-year grant for the lunch program that we have there. That'll be a $300,000 grant. They've been successful in the past, so I'm hoping, and we're hoping obviously, that they're successful with this. They are making a greenhouse, which is something that they grow some of the food there, but it also helps the kids that are there, helps build some of the things that you might use in life when you are older and stuff. So that's good. Let's see, talked about some personnel policy stuff, the wellness policy update, and then the Miller McDonald contract for our audit. Of course, that price of that has gone up a little bit, and many of these boards and committees that I'm on, that's what I hear, is that the audits are all going up in cost. That's just the sign of the times.
We all are hearing that.
Yeah. And those are the only 2 meetings I had.
Well, I didn't really have any committees since last time. I did last week give a little talk to a homeschool, high school civics class about what commissioners do and also county government. I started out by asking the question if anybody knew what county government does and what services they offer, and none of them knew anything about it, so hopefully I educated them a little bit. It was fun doing it.
Where was this at?
Over at Faith Ridge Church, they have, they homeschool gets together on Mondays.
Oh, good, good.
And,
Yeah. Colleen and I homeschooled our kids, so it's nice to know that they, homeschools, they're not just all at home all by themselves. They do have other these kind of events that they go to and as a group, and they're usually weekly, so it's good.
Yeah. So I hung on to, I did a PowerPoint presentation. I hung on to it in case I get asked again.
Oh, good for you, Tom.
That's all.
I don't have anything. The one I was gonna attend, I couldn't attend because I had a frozen drain line that I had to take care of.
Oh,
So,
bummer.
Fun, yeah.
My hubby, so I think I had just, the tiny home project is dead in the current location it was gonna go into. They're looking at a different location, possibly in Ottertail County. For energy assistance, as of February 15th, they'd received 5,200 applicants, and the staff had processed nearly 4,440 applicants, and the award dollars for heat had been $2.4 million. So that, a lot of that goes to seniors who are really struggling. There's a little hiccup in the Head Start program, and so they're working to fix that. It's just something minor. I think that's pretty much it. So they were working with a church in Becker County that was gonna help with the homeless, and the church realized that it just wouldn't work at their facility with their staff, and so they handed it back to Mojave. So Mojave's looking for a different location in Becker County to service the homeless. Dave, you want to talk about HLDC and Heritage, and then before I'll do the managers meeting, just a real good informational meeting about what's going on in the county. And then one other thing I have, we have a HIP meeting tomorrow, a special meeting called. I thought you would find this interesting. The reason for the meeting is because M-State is going to be offering a class on how to grow cannabis. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow, how I just shake my head, so. Anyway, go ahead, Dave.
HLDC, Pinecrest is moving along good. We approved the rental rates and the policies at the last meeting. Looking to start taking applications, I think right now. I think she planned on it March 1st. So that's, we already had like 10 or 12 apps. We haven't even opened it up yet, so it should be open now for applications. We still are planning on using 2 of the rooms or apartments for a daycare. That's the objective right now, to see how that works and experiment with that. And let's see, what else do we got coming? We talked about potentially doing a Hubbard County housing study and trying to get some grant money for that. She submitted for that. I believe she's on the work session agenda, isn't she, for next week? Has she been on there? If not, you might reach out to her. Because there's like 3 layers to this housing, and do countywide. You can, got a request for proposal that would break it down to not only countywide, but cities, and possibly even an area of different townships in the north. But there's different costs to that layer, and it would be interesting to know, how the county board feels about that and what they would like to see out of a housing study, so it could be beneficial to everybody in the county, including HRA and anybody who wants to use it once we get done. But there's an expense to it, and just trying to figure out how to pay for it too. So I'd reach out to her, because I've suggested coming to the work session and getting some input from the county and see what kind of involvement we might want to have, if any, financially, with helping make it happen. Let's see, Heritage. Things still progress pretty good. For the month of January, all 3 entities combined, we had a net income of minus 5,485. We had a positive cash flow of 87,231. So far for fiscal year 2024, we have a positive net income of 12,326 and a positive cash flow of 374,792. Cash and long-term investments as of 9/30/23 were negative 1,934,189, as of January 31st, 2024, they've been reduced down to negative $1,352,762. So headed in the right direction and pretty quickly. And again, the ERC looks like it was right around $830,000 that we should get back from the ERC program, so that'll go right to that cash deficit. Hopefully by the end of the year, we'll be a completely whole or positive cash balance.
Okay. I have a question on meetings to note. Thursday, May 24th is actually Friday for the, because I'm interested in going to the thing at Sourcewell. Denise, can you double check when that is?
I could have made an error there.
Okay.
It's just on the AMC's website.
Oh, was it? Okay, so if we're interested in any of these, we'll let Denise know she can register us for. Okay. And then, of course, many of us are going to the training at the end of April, or end of March, excuse me.
Leadership Conference,
Yep.
end of March, yep.
Okay. Is there anything else for today? All right, I need a motion to adjourn, please.
I'll make the motion.
Steve moves.
I'll second.
Ted seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.